Thinks he's gonna get to go to the meeting.
I know.
Doesn't look like anybody's there.
There's some people walking.
Okay.
I don't think the sound isn't turned on for everybody. I don't think.
Have they started?
No, I think it's 5:27.
Or do
Usually
you see people lined up on the table?
I can't see.
Pamela's supposed to be here. She had a dental procedure, and apparently, I believe Laura's going to be here. Laura Kineseth, our new person, is supposed to be here, from what I understand. Okay.
Hi, Doug.
Well, hi, Joy. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm not as good as you. You got a puppy behind you. Looks like there's
Oh.
everybody's got.
I have my dachshund. She thinks she's a cat. She likes to come to the Zoom meetings.
That's all right, man. That's all right. Well, we're waiting for Tamala Wright, and we are also waiting for Laura Kineseth, who has been appointed by City Council, and this should be her first meeting. Susan Presti will not be joining us this evening.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she sent me an email a few days back, said she's had something come up. And here's Miss Wright. Here's Miss Tamala. I promised her that she had dental procedures, so I promised her she would not have to speak too much.
I can understand that. Gosh.
And even though we're here in the library this evening, the room is pretty empty, so I think we'll move along pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, on this date in 1722, Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island, was first seen by Western explorers.
Well, that was an exciting thing.
And on his date in 1803, Beethoven's Second Symphony was first performed in Vienna.
I do like.
1937, General Colin Powell was born. And on this date in 1948, WGN TV in Chicago first started broadcasting. On this date in 1951, the Rosenbergs were sentenced to death for espionage. Anybody remember any of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And on this date in 1994, Kurt Cobain of the rock band Nirvana committed suicide. Supposedly. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the rumor.
Not to forget that Courtney Love was standing in the hallway with a smoking shotgun, but you know, hey, that's just an observation. It's not a judgment. Well, greetings all. I'd like to call to order the April 5th, 2023 regular meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. Tonight we have a full attendance, less Susan Presti, our vice chair, who is excused. And I would like to introduce everyone on the commission to the people in the audience, which there's not too many, and those who are listening in. We are made up of a panel of volunteers. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Ann Nichols. Tamala Wright.
And I'm Joy Porter.
Laura Kinseth.
And Laura Kineseth has joined us for the first time. She's newly appointed by City Council to the commission. Welcome, Laura. We're looking forward to your participation in these proceedings, and Joy Porter's again joining us via Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and move into item 2, approval of minutes from our March 1st, 2023 meeting.
I was absent.
Do we
I
have
didn't-
any comments or changes?
I
No, I'd
didn't notice any changes, but Susan is the one that usually catches them.
I have an motion for approval. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Section 3 or item 3. Section 3. Notice of council action. Hannah van Nimwegen.
Thank you, Chair Edmondson and members of the Historic Preservation Commission. There are no notable or there aren't any updates on actions that the Historic Preservation Commission made that City Council also made. Just as a little quick note, last evening, the City Council approved a rezoning for the Twin Springs building, which is within the Ruxton Historic Subdistrict. The property owners are not proposing any exterior alterations, which is why it didn't come before the HPC. It was incorrectly zoned as general residential. It had historically been a commercial building, so we just rectified that with the downtown zone.
Very good. And of course, we all know Twin Spring Building.
Mhm.
Thank you, Hannah. Do we have any unfinished business? And it appears not. Okay, well, let's move right into section 5, item 2, MCAC 2304, Paul Figueroa. Is that correct, sir? Figueroa. Okay, owner, replacement of 2 windows at 39 Burns Road. And I would like to ask real quick, like if we have any commissioners that have any sort of ex parte communication or any influence that they may need to recuse themselves from this particular item.
No,
No.
Okay, very good. Well, staff, may we hear your report?
Great. Thank you, commissioners. So this is going to be MCAC 2304. It's for exterior alterations to window replacements at 39 Burns Road. And the request is by owner Paul Figueroa. This property is located in the Washington subdistrict. The proposed windows will be vinyl, tan colored, single sliding windows that will match all other existing windows at the property. In 2018, all windows except for these 2 that are being proposed were replaced at the property. And they were replaced in 2018. Administratively, due to the code section on MCACs not being adopted until 2020, staff determined that an MCAC was needed for these windows tonight due to the replacements not being like for like. And even though this can be considered ordinary maintenance and repair. So these are the 2 proposed windows for replacement. They are currently inoperable. They are wood crank style windows on the lower level of the residence. And as you can see, the window south facing, so the picture on the right, that window has duct tape on it to act as a crack sealant at the moment. And then on the picture on the left, you can see majority of the other existing windows at the property. They're the same color and style windows that are being proposed for the bottom 2. And then these pictures are just a closer view of the current windows. The proposed windows will match these exactly. In the historic guidelines, there's little to no information about the Lower Washington subdistrict. But there were 2 guidelines that were applicable to this item, those being guideline 4.13, historic windows, window material, scale, and their arrangement, and location on a building facade shall be preserved, especially when the facade is visible from the street. The proposed windows are to remain in the same current location. There will be no increase or decrease in window opening, and the proposed windows will match those of the existing. And then guideline 4.18, maintain original materials, textures, and finishes on existing structures. The owner intends to retain the wood frame and shutters on those replaced windows. They will maintain the appearance of those elements and match all the existing windows. Should the Historic Preservation Commission find it appropriate to grant MCAC 2304, staff does not recommend any conditions. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Kelsey. And this is the end of staff report. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff and their report?
I don't have any questions. So the shutters are going to stay, so they'll look the same, except they'll be upgraded. Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, very good. Let's go ahead and have the applicant come forward. Yes, sir. Paul, if you could come up and just state your name, your address. Yes, sir. And press, there's a little button right in the middle that looks like a talking head. Green light will come on and we'll be able to hear you.
My name is Paulie Figueroa and I live at 39 Burns Road in Manitou Springs. Been there since 2002.
Very good. Do you have anything to add to staff's report?
No, I just want to finish the job that I started years ago. Just the last 2 windows and just so that way I can enjoy the house.
Well, it sounds good to me. Do any of the commissioners have questions for the applicant?
No.
Okay, Paul, why don't you sit tight for a minute? I'm going to go ahead and see if there's any public comment on this particular MCAC. Anybody via Zoom? Do we see a hand up? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment on this. Do the commissioners have any questions for the applicant, or do we have any more comment for staff? Okay, very good. I'm going to close all public and administrative comment on this, and I'm going to ask for a motion to move forward with MCAC 2304 window replacement at 39 Birds Road. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And it passes unanimously. Sir, thank you very much for your patience with us. And good luck. Yeah. Good use of duct tape.
I know. I love
Yeah.
that.
Very good. Well, let's move on to item 3, MCAC 2305, City of Manitou Springs applicant owner review of the Carnegie Library interiors, depending what part of the country you're from. I am going to ask at this point, since this has been such a high profile application, such a high profile project, are there any commissioners that feel that they have any undue influence or ex parte communication that they may need to recuse themselves from this hearing?
I don't.
Okay, very good. Well, then we'll move to staff report.
Great. Thank you, Chair Edmondson and members of HPC. So tonight we are reviewing the interior remodel of the Carnegie Library and the proposed renovation and the additions. The city code does give purview to the Historic Preservation Commission to review interior remodels only when it's a publicly owned resource. And it specifically says that they're reviewing significant architectural alterations. So that's what we're going to focus the presentation on. Also, as just a quick update, the major development plan that was reviewed by the City Planning Commission earlier this year did just get approved by the City Council on March 21st, and it got approved unanimously, which is excellent. That was very exciting. And that really major development plan just approved the building footprint and the site layout and the alterations that are needed on the site. So the purview of the architecture and the interior remodel really lies with the Historic Preservation Commission. Historic Preservation Commission did review those exterior alterations back in October, I believe. So this is the second half of your review. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to our architect, Leanna, who is actually online tonight. And she'll do a presentation that summarizes the packet essentially. And she'll be available for any questions. And of course, I'm available for questions as well.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Perfect. Well, let me go ahead and would it be appropriate to share my screen?
Yeah, that would work great.
Okay, great. Well, let me pull this up real quick and get moving. I'm assuming everybody is fairly familiar with the project as we went through the exterior review. So this presentation will focus mostly on the building interior, as Hannah mentioned. And let me share real quick. Okay. Sorry, just 1 second. Okay, is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes, but zooming in might be helpful.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so I can get started here. This is just outlining who the project team is. I'm with Ratio Architects. We were the architect on the project. And then we have JVA doing structural, elevation consulting for civil, mechanical is the Ballard Group, and electrical is Innovative Electrical Systems. This is just our official application form. Letter of explanation showing, detailing the project scope and project intent. And then we have our certificate of mailing for notification. This is a repeat of what was in the exterior presentation, but kind of details the historic significance of the building, which components were kind of included in that historical significance, and which components are original to the building. And we can just kind of go through some existing photos, giving context of what the existing building looks like today. Here's some photos of the interior on the upper level. So you can see there's a lot of wood trim, existing light fixtures, and then some bookshelves that are also original. We have the original vestibule and then the staircase going, it's the split level entry vestibule staircase going up to the main upper level and down to the basement. And then here we have the basement level. This was never intended originally for public use. This was kind of the restroom space, back of house space. And I believe it was a caretaker's residence as well. So you can see that it's kind of been modified over the years to make it usable space. But this kind of just shows the existing conditions today. Then we can get into the design. Most of the renovation or most of the building addition will be on the lower level. You can see here the upper level primarily focuses on the addition for providing circulation, vertical circulation down to the lower level with a lift and a staircase. On the upper level for the existing building, we are proposing that the main space be utilized as a community room, so it will remain mostly open to kind of preserve the existing conditions. However, we do need to provide an accessible restroom for the upper level, so that is being provided in this space, as well as a storage closet, maintenance closet, and I think we also have an electrical closet. So that portion of the existing building will be repurposed. And then we're also opening up where there was an existing window to provide a new doorway for access between the addition and the existing building. Similar thing on the lower level, the main space is going to be primarily opened. There's an existing wall that separates the existing space that is going to be removed so that it can just be one large room. There's also an existing restroom that is getting removed. And then again, we'll be opening up 2 locations of the existing masonry walls to provide connection to the building addition. One is here in the children's area, which is an arched window that is being opened. And then this on the south of the mechanical room is just a new rectangular opening that is being cut into the masonry wall to provide access for additional mechanical space. If you want me to go through the checklist, I certainly can, but I think I'll probably skip ahead if no one has any objections. And we'll get into the interior materials. Slide just kind of details, sorry about that. Slide just details what the existing materials are and our intent to follow the Secretary of Interior standards with preserving any existing materials as possible and really focus on rehabilitation of the existing buildings. So here we have, as I mentioned, a lot of existing wood trim. The existing shelving in this large open space that will be the community room will remain in this room. Existing shelving that is in the south portion of the building, you can see here, will be relocated, most likely into the children's library portion of the building. And then we have the original vestibule will be maintained. It is not providing an accessible entrance. So it was the reason that the building was closed as a library. So it will not be functioning as the main entrance of the building anymore, but the configuration, all the materials will remain for their historic significance. And then, as I mentioned, this was the original floor plan of the basement. So restrooms, attendance room, workroom. And so our proposed design is to refinish this basement to make it a fully usable space for the children's area. But maintaining all of the existing windows, maintaining all of the trim as much as possible. And let's see, here we go. This is one area that we would like to feature for the upper level. So where we have the existing framed opening, we are closing that off in order to provide separate restroom and mechanical room and storage spaces in the south portion. However, based on the significance of that opening, we thought it made sense to give it some significance and give it some additional detailing. So we're proposing the infilling wall to be wood paneling with some framed components to break up the space and kind of maintain the wood trim, the character of the existing building, but providing our closed wall and then the 2 new doors to the storage room and to the hallway. And for the main space, the upper level, we will be maintaining all of the existing light fixtures. Some of the larger fixtures you can see, those with 3 and 4 lamps will be repurposed, and those will be moved to the new stairwell. So they will be relocated but remain in the building. And then the basement level lighting is not historic, not original to the building. So that is getting removed and is upgrading to LED lighting. Any new lighting provided in the existing building will also be LED lighting, and we're having an upgraded lighting control system that will be more sustainable for the building. We are also providing a new mechanical system for the building. One thing to note here is due to the low ceilings in the basement and the low beam that separates the space from the north half and the south half, in order to wrap the ductwork, we had to extend it below the beam which created a space that was not usable based on it having only a ceiling height of 6 feet. But that did allow us to create a kind of special moment for the children's library, a special little alcove space where they can be. And unfortunately, we do have a little bit of a conflict with the ductwork and the soffits kind of overlapping the existing windows. However, we are proposing to pull those back from those exterior walls as much as possible so that it kind of minimizes the impact that it will have on the view of those archtop windows. All the existing doors and frames will be maintained in their locations. We are proposing to kind of sand and refinish the doors. You can see there's quite a bit of wear and tear on the existing doors. And once the building has the addition, we really don't want the existing building to feel like it doesn't have the same level of finish and really feel like it's brought up to the level of the building addition. So we want to make sure that those get refinished to their former glory, and all of the existing bronze hardware will remain. Also, any new doors that will be going into the original building will have the same paneling, and we will also be providing brass hardware. As I mentioned, we are cutting into the building at 2 windows. So this is the upper level window that will be opened up to provide a door access to the new entry vestibule. And then this is the lower level window that will be removed and opened up for access to the children's area to the addition. Those windows that are removed will be salvaged and turned over to the owner for repurposing in the library. Future use is not fully decided, potentially with some sort of art installation. And then those openings will be maintained in the existing height and the existing shape of the arch top, but just with doorways instead. One other thing to note, there is an existing door to the lower level on the east side of the building. Based on the parking space that we're providing, the accessible parking space that's going on site, the grading has to be brought up. So we are proposing that the grade be brought up. This doorway gets removed and closed off, and the doorway will be infilled with any brick that is salvaged from the brick removed in order to make the new doorway openings and the new opening into the mechanical space. And you can see here, these are the details just kind of showing how our structural engineer is planning on handling the new masonry opening that is provided in that mechanical back of house space. And those are all of the components that we have prepared to talk to you about and present. Please let me know if there are any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that report. And who would I ask to come up on behalf of the applicant? Hannah, would that be you?
Yes, that would be me.
Okay, Hannah, please name and address.
Hannah Vanden Morgan McGuire, Planning Director for Manitou Springs. I pretty much live in this building, so 606 Manitou Avenue.
Got it.
I believe that Leanna covered the components really well. We have yet to pick the exact finishes, as in like carpet, tile, and things of that nature. But we were discussing how we can incorporate the public into choosing those finishes. So we would provide a few options that were all within the same price range. And that would just help get some of that public engagement through, show that the project is moving forward, but then also increase their feeling of ownership over their community library. So while we're going through that, just know that that might be a presentation that we will come forward with you guys, or let you guys know what's going on as we move forward with the exact design choices. But as far as significant architectural features, I think Leanna covered it pretty thoroughly.
Fantastic. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff or the report from Ratio?
I just had some clarifications, just so they understand. On the lower basement area, the lights there, they won't be the pendant lights. What are the plans for upgrading those lights down there?
Yeah, so we will be providing new light fixtures in the basement. Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me pull up. Excuse me. So, yeah, as you see, the existing fixtures are not original. So what we are proposing to do in the basement is for the south portion of the basement, it will have a soffit. So we will have some recessed strip lighting. And then the north portion will have exposed ceiling. We'll be providing a new chipboard, drywall ceiling up at the location of the existing ceiling. And we will have some surface mounted strip lighting in this space.
And then what happens, there's a lot of doors. There were 3 kinds of doors you described in the report. The original doors, then the 5-panel doors, and the new doors. Are the new doors 5-panel, or what will the new doors leading into the new section of the building be like?
Yeah, so all new doors that have glazing, like the new entrance between the existing building and the addition, will be matching the original vestibule doors,
Okay.
which have kind of the top half is glazing, the bottom half is 2-panel. So this language will be replicated on any doors that have glazing. So this door here into the hallway, and then the door connecting the existing building to the addition. And then the door in the basement that has the arch top from the children's area into the addition will also be the same language, but it will have the arch top with arch top to the glazing portion as well, but still maintaining the half glass. And then any doorways that are going to mechanical closet storage rooms will be the 5-panel wood doors.
Okay, and they will be tinted in the same color as the other doors, probably?
Yes.
Okay. And then just a curiosity question, what happens to the circulation desk?
The circulation desk is getting removed. I'm not sure. I don't believe that is getting salvaged and repurposed. And Hannah, maybe you can correct me if there was a discussion about that, but.
I don't believe that there was a plan to reuse that existing circulation desk, but maybe it's a point of further discussion down the line if that did have significance. I don't know if I don't think it's original.
It'd be nice just to find out. I mean, just out of curiosity, if it does have significance, or to be repurposed, or, just to destroy it. I don't know. It'd be nice to see it used, or the wood used, or something done with it, not just into a scrap pile, if possible. I don't know how it's attached and how it's built.
Yeah, given the wood and the location based on the existing building drawings, I do not believe that has any historic significance. But, I know more and more these days we're hearing talk about deconstruction just as a best practices, especially for sustainability and not contributing to waste. I don't know that that's going to be utilized here, but I know that's something that we're always considering these days.
Okay. And then is it difficult with all the pendants being moved? Is it difficult to do the ceiling, or is it just, they just come out and you patch it, or as you rearrange them?
Yeah. So anything that's removed, leaving any openings in the ceiling, will be patched. They are pretty small profiles for the ceiling connection, so we're not anticipating any, large components. And hopefully there's nothing unknown. Obviously, we won't really know until we remove them with what the existing conditions are like. But the plan is just to remove and patch as appropriate.
Okay. I think that was all the questions or things that I was curious about, and I appreciate the answers. Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff report?
So I just had kind of one basic question, Hannah. I noticed when I was looking at the very large package and got to the construction drawings, they're still 50%. So do you have any inkling that when you get to 100%, there could be impacts to the historic interior that you haven't yet identified?
Thank you, Commissioner Nichols. That's a very good question. So at the time that the packet was published, we did have 50% conceptual or construction drawings. At this time, as of yesterday evening, we do have that 100% draft set. And those are being reviewed by us as staff, but then also by the State Historic Fund. So those, the Carnegie Library property does have a covenant that's active on the property that requires the State Historic Fund to review any renovations. So that 100% set, we did just review it. And Leanna, correct me if I'm wrong, but the 50% drawings were a good representation of the amount of impact. So there wasn't anything beyond what was shown in that 50% set versus what's in the 100% set, which I would, of course, love to share with you guys.
Great, thank you.
Will there be any changes to the tile on top and the roof on the old section of the building? Will there be any changes to that? It'll just stay the same?
Yeah, the existing roof will stay the same. We have one location where we will need to provide a new pipe penetration for the mechanical systems, just a ventilation. So it's a small penetration, and we'll just make sure we're doing careful detailing to coordinate how that gets installed in the existing roof.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for the architect. If you could just clarify the materials that are used in the panel system. I'm not quite clear how that works and whether or not there's going to be trim on those doors.
Yeah, so let me go back to that drawing really quick. So the intent of that panel system is to match, you can kind of see some of the wood grain on the back of the bookshelves. So the intent is to match the species, and I don't know that we've fully worked out what the original wood species is, but the intent is to kind of match that wood grain pattern for the panels that will be here in the kind of hatched areas. And then in terms of the frame, we're providing a wood frame around the full infill of the opening, then going around the doors and separating that horizontal line as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just wondering why there was no trim to match existing trim around the doors.
Yeah, well, I guess there will be trim. What we're looking at right now is doing a thinner profile that kind of extends all the way up to the ceiling and all the way across, rather than kind of just being around those door openings.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I understand now.
And is there any more questions for staff, applicant, so on and so forth? I do have a couple myself, real quick, so I am to understand that the old vault doors will be preserved.
Yes, I believe the large vault door will be preserved, and that's one thing I did not talk about, but what we are proposing is the vault itself will be removed, and then on the back side, we're proposing to infill the opening with a thinner wall so that we can provide some built-in shelving there for use for the children's library, and then the vault door itself will remain, but will be fixed in an open location so as not to be a safety hazard.
Very good. And just to remind commissioners, if they did take the time to read through the 976 pages of citations of material and process, there actually is few mentions there, and also in the cut sheet for the architectural drawings that any materials that are in the building, if they are asked to be preserved, can be and used at a later date. I have reached out to the Mineral Springs Heritage Center to ask them if they are interested in the preservation of the two windows that will be removed. And I would like to make one suggestion And that is that out of the two vault doors, there's the older one that's underneath the staircase. That lock could be disabled, and it would be, I think, in the spirit of our community to have that used as a community seed library, since seeds are stored in cold areas very well. It's something that could be adopted either by PPLD or some other venture here in Manitou Springs. I'm sure there'd be a lot of folks that would love to see something like that happen. It's just a suggestion. The pendant lights are they going to be replaced with in-kind lighting, or is there going to be some sort of LED rail lighting up by the hanging rail?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I'm
Hey.
following the,
I'm kind of wondering how that's going to be lighted.
the hanging rail. That,
No,
that's the term I'm not sure I'm following.
Yeah, there's what's called a picture rail that encircles the room.
Oh,
Is
yes.
Yeah, is there going to be LED lighting in there, or is it you guys going to replace the pendant lights with some other sort of LED can or something of that nature?
Yeah, so the existing lighting around the perimeter is being maintained, but is being upgraded to LED, as well as the lighting at the windows.
I'm asking about the main level community room.
Right. So this lighting above the windows here?
Yes.
Yes. So that lighting is being maintained, but is being upgraded to LED.
Okay, cool. And then you're going to just eliminate the old pendant lights?
These pendant lights will remain. They're just being relocated to work with the new layout.
Okay,
And like
cool.
I mentioned, the bigger four lamp and 3 lamp fixtures are being repurposed and relocated to the new stairwell.
Okay, very good. And then the only thing I didn't see was any sort of, and I know it's a mechanical issue, but I'm concerned about penetrations in old ceilings like this. The sprinkling system, I didn't see any sort of drawings or design for sprinkling in the building.
Yes.
I would be part of the 100% package.
There is no existing sprinkler, and we are not proposing to add a sprinkler based on the building square footage and the construction. It is not needed.
All right, that sounds good to me. Well, I have no further questions. Do any commissioners, are you satisfied?
I
Go
am.
Yes, just one more question. About the 3 south-facing windows that are existing. I was wondering, the center one, of course, will be that open.
Laura, could you speak into the microphone, please?
Oh.
Thank you.
The center window, of course, opening will be for a door, but will those 2 other windows be preserved as interior windows?
Yes, they will be preserved as interior windows. We will need to provide some sort of screening film on the easternmost window, as that is going to be going into the new restroom. So we just want to make sure that we're maintaining privacy, but the window will be maintained.
Great, thank you.
And in the restroom, you're going to have male, female, and a family?
What we're proposing for the building is we will have 1 single-use restroom on the upper level and 1 single-use restroom on the lower level that will be kind of gender neutral.
Okay. And now I think there has to be a baby changing station someplace.
Yeah, they will both have baby changing facilities.
Okay. Someone asked me about that and I was like, I'll ask. I assumed you would have something like that.
Yeah, that's our standard to provide those in all of our restrooms.
Okay, great.
Yeah, those are actually called out in the plumbing sheet on like page 36 or whatever.
I looked at it, Doug, but I probably didn't connect to it.
So very good. Well, if the commissioners are satisfied, we'll go ahead and move to public comment on this issue. I would ask for anyone that's making public comment to try to keep it brief. And we're going to start off with anybody that is in support of this particular issue to come forward, state their name and address, and please provide us with their comments.
My name is Rob Dannon. I live at 112 Cave Avenue. I'm very supportive, as probably many of you know, of the project and where we're at at this point, and very excited about the exterior footprint and what I'm hearing tonight. I looked over the report, but hearing about it in actuality, it's quite exciting. And I wanted to say thank you to Ratio, Leanna. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes.
And Eric. And also the Hannah and her planning department, Denise behind me, and all of her work and support on this. So it's exciting to finally be at this point and sitting in front of you tonight. What I wanted to talk about, it's not in terms of anything in relation to my feelings towards the project, but just a couple of things that I have thought about, and mostly I've talked to the former manager, Margaret Morris, that I know all of you know. And there's a couple of things to be considered. I haven't had a chance to talk to Hannah about this or to Leanna, or Eric, because it's new really in terms of our realization. So I thought this would be a good place for the commissioners to hear, as well as both the planning department and Ratio. There's some murals downstairs in the downstairs old children's section, or will be the continuing children's section. And you can see them in actually some of the slides. They're in the back part, but those are murals that were painted by a local artist that some of you may realize. I think those were painted 30 years ago. And yeah, they're in the very back where that arched window is. And there may be some other places in the former children's area that have those murals. And I believe those were painted 30 years ago. And the artists themselves, at least to me, haven't come up and said anything. But I don't know in terms of historic preservation, in a sense, if those would be considered to be maintained. Also, there were paintings in there. One of them, I believe, was by Rocky of the library. And there's been a couple other paintings that were hanging in the library. I'm not sure where they are now and if they're going to be put back into the library. Particularly, I know of Rocky's, and I believe it's the picture of the outside of the library that we're all familiar with. It would be appropriate to have that back in there. Also, talking about the downstairs, just FYI, and you may not know this, but I'm quite excited about the partnership between D14 and the new library, in talking with not only the central administration, but also the elementary principal recently as well. They will be making further cooperation and collaboration with the library when it opens. And I believe they're planning to have their Amenity 2 Elementary School library program in the new building, because they don't have the space or the facility. And that's going to be worked out. I talked to Taryn Malik, the current Manitou library manager, and she and the elementary principal have been talking and will continue to do so. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's an extension to the community, almost inherent when the new library opens. I think that's quite exciting. And the last thing that I have is, I don't know if you're aware that in the 100-year anniversary of the library, a time capsule was developed. I was on the board of trustees when that happened, and it was being placed by the circulation desk at the time. I know, with the help of Margaret, the capsule is in somebody's local home. And so I was wondering, when the library does open, if the time capsule could possibly be put back into the library. I don't even know if it would be part of a cornerstone or whatever, but and I'd be glad to help make the connection, particularly with the time capsule, for whoever may want to look into that. But I think it would be very appropriate to bring the time capsule back. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Really appreciate it. Do we have anybody who is participating via Zoom or internet that would like to make any sort of comments? Any hands?
We have no attendees signed in at this moment.
Oh, okay. Nobody loves us. That's right. Well, thank you, Rob. And since there are no other hands up or anyone else in attendance for public comment, we'll go ahead and close that. And do we have any more comments by commissioners for the applicant or for participants?
I guess, Doug, I would like to say, if it's okay, what are we going to do with the murals and where is Rocky's painting? I
Okay,
mean,
well,
the
thank you.
murals of the giraffe and it looks like a dragon of some kind, maybe, or some mythical creature. Then the one that looks like a scene do we know what's happened to them or how we can preserve the murals?
Yeah, I was, and thanks for that, Joy. I was given a bit of an earful at when this all first started about what happened to some of the items that were inside of the library. Right now, the only thing that's still in there that was original to the building is been here for a long time, is the clock. I do believe some of the photographs and other items that were wall items had been moved to the current location at 515. During this process for this particular edition, I know that the Pikes Peak Library District has changed guard a bit. So we would have to rely on someone like Margaret Morris, Rob Dannon, people that are in our community to identify and try to locate these items. I know there were some old books, so on and so forth, that have quote unquote gone missing. But we are dealing with librarians after all. And if anybody can find these, it would probably be them. So I think we could, I could talk with staff about maybe spearheading a bit of a search for this. As far as the murals go, during my visit to the Colorado History Conference, that was also a subject of one of the presentations. And when it comes to murals, if they don't have to be disturbed, that can be a request. They can be taped over and preserved and restored, particularly if the artist is still living. If there's any work that needs to be done in and or around them, they can be photographed and replicated. I think that's a suggestion that could be possibly made here. Looks like Hannah has her light on, so I think she's got something for us.
Commissioner Edmondson. So we do know where the Rocky painting is. It's in our office. So it's actually sitting behind Aaron's desk and on the wall. Yes. And it was not given to us, but it's on loan until the library is finished. And then we fully intend to give it back. So that's where that particular one is.
There you are.
And do you know if we're going to try to preserve the murals or what's the plan for them?
I think that would be a question for the architect.
Yeah, so, currently we do not have a plan for that. I think, based on the photographs here, the kind of landscape view and the dragon will unfortunately be impacted by the new design. However, those may be, as mentioned, a candidate for being photographed and replicated somewhere else. The giraffe could potentially be preserved. That wall is going to be removed, but that portion of drywall could potentially be retained and used elsewhere, or may be more practical to photograph and replicate that one as well. That is not something I believe that has been in our scope of work, but it's something we can certainly look into and try to find some locations for those murals to go in the new space.
I guess what I would say to that is that, as we look at the community, this is a community building, and the murals are 30 years plus, that there's a lot of people that have grown up seeing those as they move from kindergarten to seniors. And it seems a shame just to not be able to make some kind of accommodation more than just having someone replicate it. I guess we can do it that way, but it'd be interesting to try to preserve.
With that, Joy, I do believe the wall separating the main room to the little, what was the office or the giraffe, if I'm correct in saying that, is probably gypboard, and there's a better chance of preserving that than the others. The others are direct application to plaster.
They look like they are, and I hadn't really thought of that. Yeah, I think the giraffe looks like it has a wall.
Right.
It looks like they're painted. So I guess we may end up just taking some really
Right.
good photographs so that we can have some of the artists in Manitou, who we have many talented people.
If I may, and Rob just put his hand up, I think he sees what's coming. If I know this is a little out of order, but if I may ask Mr. Dannon a question, is the artist still living that did these? So if Tina Reister is still living, which I believe so, the last time I saw her, then there could be a potential for potential for her to replicate these and sort of reimagine them in the finished product of this. I think it might give them a new zeal, a new life. And then again, it gets back to that, the spirit of stewardship that we're looking for, community involvement with such a deeply ingrained project for our community.
Valentina is so talented as a painter.
Years.
She's just amazing. So I'm sure she could have pictures and know what to do. She's just such a talented artist.
Well, I think I think she would be delighted to have the opportunity to do this for our community.
Thanks.
I agree completely. And I think that could be part of the finish list for the library. I think it's an easy request. If anybody did examine their citations on this, the repurposing of materials that are in the building it can be requested at any time by the owner of the building, which is the city of Manitou Springs, or any sort of other finish element where there are questions. I do know that the circulation desk is newer, but I'm sure it'd be pretty easy to find a home for it. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. And thank you, Rob, for your input. With that, I am going to close public comment again. Thank everybody for their support. This has been a long road, and it's really wonderful to see how at the end it's shaken out like this. So do we have any more comments or discussions by commissioners? Bookcase is walnut, and I do believe the paneling in the vestibule and the stairwells are of the same material, and they did not know what the species of wood, and walnut would be a good guess. A nice rich. And I wanted, if they rip it out, this is girl after my own heart over here.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. Well, I at this moment am going to close all comments and ask for a motion to proceed with MCAC 2305 City of Manitou Springs owner review of the library interiors with apparently not too many caveats. Do I have a motion?
I so move to approve. Excuse me.
Do I have a second?
I would second.
All in favor? Aye. Well, thank you one and all. This is, I think we did that in record time too. A round of applause as we should. Well, with that said, let's move on to section 6, other business, item 4, historic district sign topper program. And at this time, since this is not a voting item, and it is only just a bit of a discussion item, I am going to invite Commissioner Tamala Wright to excuse herself, since she had dental procedures that are just making her smile all the way around, so she can go home and have that vodka and tonic and hit the couch.
Bye, Tamala.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And Hannah, other business, item 4, historic district sign topper program and signs inventory.
Yes. So this is a follow-up on a project that was started, I believe last year was the first time money was allocated in 2022 to install some sign toppers that indicated the historic subdistrict that particular properties were in. Since then, the project has expanded and now includes a number of other components. And with that came additional funding, which is great. So while we were at one time just proposing historic district sign toppers, now we're also going to be doing a full cleanup of all the signage along Manitou Avenue. So that means reducing visual clutter, reducing unnecessary signs, creating a sign typical that would actually be a standard visual for all types of signage. And in addition to adding those toppers. And so overall, with this additional scope, we think that we'll get a pretty great product. I think it was like Aaron's second or third day when I was like, I have the perfect project for you. And Aaron has really taken this project and run with it. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to her to update the commission on where we are now and where we're hoping to go pretty soon.
Thank you. I'm Erin Ringsred, Planner 2 here with the City of Manitou. Close enough to them. So this is the flow chart of the project process so far. We initially did a project kickoff, just understanding and refining the scope. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Okay. So right now, the phase that we just completed was a level of magnitude in terms of cost, and then the analysis of what our findings had been in terms of the signage inventory. So I took a signage inventory from Highway 24 to Serpentine Drive. Based on that inventory, each of these pink dots on the map represents a sign location. Some of these signs and the sign pole structure has multiple signs on it, but we're simply measuring, each sort of vertical element that has a sign on it. So of those signs, there's 48% of them are parking signs, with 27% of them being general regulatory signage. We broke those down into zones in terms of finding ways to potentially phase the corridor, as well as there are some different characters associated with different zones along the corridor. So zone 1 is primarily has more of the residential character. It has been recently revamped. Zone 2 is where that historic core is. And that's where the largest percentage of signs are, which makes sense considering the amount of parking that is in that area. And then zone 3, we've defined as the Creek Walk Trail sign area, because that area is up next in terms of phase 4 and 5 that's currently being designed as part of the Creek Walk Trail. And then the last zone, zone 4, is the Highway 24 gateway. So we took just looking at those individual signs and then pulled out where are we seeing parking signs, knowing that that's the highest percentage on the corridor, and 61% of the parking signs are there in zone 2. So you can see how those are distributed throughout the corridor. Next, we looked at intersections, since this primarily began as a sign topper for those street signs at intersections. There are 23 intersections along this section of the corridor with 20 existing sign markers. So there are several intersections that do not have those street sign marking. We also looked at what is the condition of the signs. So is the foundation in good shape? Are we seeing bent poles? Is there rust on those poles? And based on that, we identified 21 in zone 2 that have damage to that foundation. We also took a look at signs that are needing replacement. So there's some that have sort of cracking in the finish or are very sun bleached. So those were identified as well. And there are 34 of those in zone 2. Another issue we looked at was ADA compliance and just consistency in terms of where the signs are placed on their pole or light pole. There are 105 of them needing height adjustment in zone 2. And then because of sort of the magnitude of the data that we were gathering, we did it in sort of swaths. So the dots that are blue are less than 6 feet in height. The dots that are orange are between 6 and 7 feet in height. So some of those are okay the way they are in the orange. So that's why they're qualified as something that may need adjustment. And that was factored into when we did some initial back of napkin type costing. But to understand why this is classified as ADA compliance is because this is considered a vertical, obstruction. So when those signs are larger than 8 inches across, therefore the overhang on either side of the pole is greater than 4 inches, then that's something that could be run into if you are visually impaired. So they should not be located any lower than 6 feet 6 inches when installed on a walkable surface in sort of that clearance zone, and if they're hanging over larger than that. Some signs don't, they're small enough, like the metro signs are 4 inches on either side because those are a smaller sign, but the crosswalk signs, the speed limit signs, those that are a foot or more in width do represent something that we need to be taking a look at in terms of making our city as welcoming and ADA compliant as we want to be. And so as part of this effort, we're looking at standardization of where those signs are posted. There are regulations as part of, traffic regulations in terms of how high signs need to be posted, but their regulations are purely on visibility for the vehicular driver. So we are taking that look in terms of combining the ADA regulations with the traffic regulations to find to that perfect height to build consistency with how these signs are posted throughout the corridor. With all of that inventory and analysis, we are identifying zone 2, the historic downtown core, as the first section along this corridor that should see that signage cleanup and the first round of improvements. Just with the sheer volume of signs that are there, as well as the historic character of that zone, we feel like that is sort of that first place to make those improvements. Now, we looked at a few different types of improvements that could be made. The first was the historic toppers. This is a completely separate sign. You've seen this in Colorado Springs at the Old North End. The benefit of this is that it's a little bit more potentially plug and play. Those toppers can go on top of any sign. And so there's, benefits in terms of maintenance, enhanced brand recognition, and cost. One of the cons or the drawback is you have more additional connections that are happening on that sign, as well as additional height with that. The other option we looked at is integrated historic branding. There are 2 examples here, the red one, which is a downtown historic district branding, and then the brown one, which is the Murray City Historic District, where they've integrated a logo or a brand on top of that sign. So it's minimizing the amount of overall height that's added to it and is not adding a connection to that structure. A potential pro or con in terms of maintenance is really that then it's unique to each location. So you have to have the 7th Street one with the topper as opposed to having a topper that you could put at any street section. The other option we looked into was something that's a little bit more ornamental, that's maybe accomplished through metal fabrication, which is in this example. But as sort of represented by this example, we felt like this was less visible against certain backdrops, so it wouldn't have that additional branding punch that we were looking for, and potentially is adding visual clutter that might be distracting from the historic architecture that's in downtown by introducing an additional language to that area. And then the other thing that we were looking at that could be combined with each of these other sign characters was adding a powder coated backing to the signs, as well as powder coated poles. One thing that wasn't called out in the analysis part of the presentation, but is that the poles that these signs are attached to varies greatly. We had galvanized square, we had green channel, we had yellow powder coated poles, and galvanized round powder coated poles. So as part of this effort in terms of standardizing height, we were also looking to standardize the mechanism by which they are mounted in the landscape in the public realm. So we had taken a look then at some just back of the napkin costs of these different options, because they do represent a different amount of signs that are being touched. However, based on those costs and the available budget, we are going with we're exploring graphics and alternatives and signage design with that powder coated pole and backing as a way of really cleaning up the signage that's happening in downtown just across the board and adding some consistency there. Just that it was sort of worth that extra because that was still in the budget and we can attack that first zone to clean things up. And then the red option here is the direction we're looking to, where that integrated branding is happening only on the topmost sign and not on both of the signs, like in the brown example, feeling that brown example just represented kind of too many shapes coming together, and that the red would be a lot cleaner and in the spirit of simplifying the visual cues that are happening in this area from regulatory signage. So that there were this is our next steps moving forward. I'll kind of go back to that. Our next step moving forward is concept iteration. So I'm currently playing with graphics and things like that. And then of these 3 outcomes that we see coming out of this project, we're prioritizing the construction documents phase 1, which are those toppers and those branding elements at the street intersections. And then the rest of these will be sort of attacked as we're able.
And just to add, in addition to the 10,000 that was in the historic preservation budget, a budget retreat that happened earlier this year, an additional 150,000 was given to beautifying downtown, and we are gaining a portion of that budget as well as a portion of this normal signage budget that comes with Public Works. So that's where this project really expanded from just toppers to doing something that has like a real intention to it, and then would create a typical for how we would move forward throughout the rest of the city. So we felt downtown was a perfect place to start. We'll go ahead. It has a very high concentration of signs, and it's missing some key intersection signs. So we would go ahead and produce those and just get that area done, and then move on in the next several years into the other sub-districts of the city with that same typical. So as Erin mentioned, what we're working on right now is some design ideas, which we would share with the Historic Preservation Commission. And you guys would choose which one you wanted to move forward with, whichever you felt was the most representative of the downtown, and then go into actually buying, fabricating, and installing from there. And as we move forward into other sections of the city, of course, they would have their own design, as we talked about too.
Exciting.
Commissioners, do we have any questions or comments?
No, just there's a lot of signs. I'm glad you noticed them.
Wasn't there a song about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Erin. It's a lot of work, and I know how it is to get out there and hit the bricks and count them and take a tape and measure and do all that kind of fun stuff, and good work. I do have one question. If you could go back to the examples of the 4. Right there. So number 2 seems to be a really simple economic way to engage sub-districts, secondary roads, secondary signs, where basically at the corner, all you have is a stop sign, probably a galvanized pole, and just a regular old, street sign, intersection sign. Can those be made in-house? Are those things that they can do in a sign shop here in Manitou? Up at our city shops?
By Public Works, you mean?
By Public Works, yes. Because I think they make all of our intersection signs. I think they make a lot of their signage
They do make
in-house.
They do make quite a few of them right now. With this volume that we'd be anticipating creating all at once, we are looking at hiring that out, just in terms of how that pencils out in terms of labor and available public work staff and their standard sort of needs. So we do make some of them there, but we currently also hire out some as well, just depending on workflow and how intense things are at the moment.
Yeah, because I feel that would probably be, for secondary streets and back in things that are off the main drag, as they say, probably a good economic way to identify a sub-district without having to accrue a lot of cost. And, you know, of course, the more ornate and powder coated signs would be wonderful in the downtown district since we have such a strong Victorian presence. It's definitely in concert with that feel and that look. So, well, thank you very much for all your hard work. Wonderful stuff.
And I like the idea too, in the sub-districts of having some, you know, continuity of the design and also the quality. Because we want the people in the sub-districts to, when they need to do things with their homes, that they do it in the historic guidelines. So it's a great, great project, Erin. It's just great to hear.
Thank you.
Now, if you could take care of some of those lights.
Right on. Well, thank you very much for that presentation, Aaron and staff, and all your hard work. Before I adjourn, I'm going to go ahead and bring up one quick item. We did do Commissioner Nichols and myself teamed up on the awards survey that we had initially talked about, and provided addresses and a quick description of work to be performed. I went out to the field to see if the work had been performed, and also used my contractor's portal to see if the work had been permitted and properly executed. We have completed that survey, and we hope that on next month's agenda, we can review that stuff and get an awards program in place.
It's great work, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if that is all, I will adjourn the April 5th, 2023 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. All have a good night and stay warm.
All right, bye, everyone. Yeah.